differently than Doug did, but slightly better. And then thirdly, I'm going to talk about cleaning your moral slate, and why the middle classes would like it, if people didn't really resent the fact that they had Sony Bravia TVs. Alright, the first thing. Babies produced in a machine, propagated toward a pond for the purposes of drainage. We have several problems. That wasn't anything, okay? The first point is, the issue isn't should you spend all of your time there waiting for the machine to pop out babies and fling them out of the pond. What it is should middle class people spend their spare time disabling the machine? To presume everyone's stupid, so we're going to wait for the babies to pop out and fling them out. We can go, look out, take that moral arbitrary leverage machine. That's the word we've set ourselves. We can do it without harming ourselves. We're perfectly happy to do so. Secondly, could you please set us some level at which we'll stop giving money to Africa? So basically, 10 years' time, we're all broke. They're all in Porsches going, ha ha ha. Bundle up SOAS, they got us some nice cars. All it means is, at the point where we can prevent African people from dying of not being able to eat or live, not being able to live is quite a substantial cause of death. This will allow people to propagate themselves, to form a society, to propagate goods for themselves. This is what people want. African people do not want us to give them everything in the world. They want us to give them the baseline for a society to propagate things for themselves. That's the line we'll draw. We're perfectly happy with that. And thirdly, like quote unquote, they won't learn any lessons if we just give it to them. Like, sorry, this is an argument against any. Right? This is an argument against giving anyone anything because they won't learn their lesson if we just give them some stuff. Like, we're perfectly happy for African people to learn that we can give them things for subsistence level so they can grow their economies from scratch. We don't think they will learn anything from dying of diphtheria going, First point, intention. Our point for this extension is to show that every criteria they've based their case on shows that these people are morally responsible under our criteria. Okay? Firstly, intentions. Was anyone in the other semi? Rushab shoots a bullet across a golf course. He shoots a bullet aiming at Richard Robinson's face. Okay? Aiming at Richard Robinson. He then decides, that one's going to miss, and shoots again. He hits the first bullet and it deflects away, missing Richard. This is a bad action twice, just happens Rushab's a bad shot. The second time, Rushab says, oh my god, there's a bullet heading for Richard's face, shoots it and deflects it, thus saving Richard's life. Both actions are pretty much the same, both actions have the same outcome. One is entirely morally reprehensible, one is entirely morally distinct. At the point where you choose between 8 African lives and a Louis Vuitton handbag, we are perfectly happy to deem you to be morally reprehensible. We are perfectly happy to deem you to be specifically responsible for those lives. The argument we got from the other side was, well, it's very detached and Africa is quite far away. We don't specifically buy that. If you go into the Louis Vuitton shop and they go, if you buy this, these 8 dudes will die. If they give it to a middle class and nicely socially responsible, you go, well, I couldn't possibly buy that. Possibly one of you in a minute. The point is, if it's specifically in front of you, you will absolutely choose the less morally reprehensible option. Just because they're quite far away doesn't make your actions any better. It makes them worse in our view because you're shielding yourself from what is the actual reality of those people suffering. Less posh people.
Why is sainthood the only tolerable form of human existence?
Okay, this goes back to the premise of his case, which was the world is morally reprehensible. Why do we have to be saints within it to not be morally abhorrent? We don't say you have to be saints. We think you should act to mitigate against the moral reprehensibility which exists in a world. If that means giving away luxury goods to the point where you can solve the African problem in 18 months and do it at Louis Vuitton handbags and digital for 18 months, we're pretty much happy with that point. These guys have overlooked the entire fact that any solution or giving from this problem is something which is solvable within our lifetime, solvable within a fraction of our lifetime. Yet it's somewhat too much for the middle classes to possibly take on because it's too much for them to do without Sky HD. We don't specifically think that is an acceptable argument. The second thing I want to talk about is cleaning your moral slate. Okay? Nice. At the moment, there is a distinct both jealousy and resentment from people who are somewhat poorer, who feel somewhat richer, in the sense that they gain things and do nothing about it, gain things and have absolute better advantages in life. We have problems with this for several reasons. One, we just don't like the specific resentment it creates, and secondly, we think people consent into being incredibly rich. Okay? You can consent into gaining lots of money, you can consent into having an extremely profitable job. We think you can mitigate against that resentment by, solving the problems in Africa. At the point where you can do that, we think you absolutely should. The question we were posed from Tom was, actually I'll take Tom in a second on this. He said, if they can prove their framework makes Africa worse, we will lose this debate. Please demonstrate how that is possible.
I could fix the baby dropping machine, but in doing so, I had to let a few babies drop, because I can't fix the machine and pick up babies at the same time. Should I fix the machine, or should I keep picking up babies?
Beyond Tom. There are very many of us. You hold the babies, I'll fix the machine. Don't project absolute scenarios where there are only two potential actors in any conceivable solution. There are very, very many of us. One of us can hold the machine, one of us can catch the babies, and one of us can give the kids places to eat. There are very, very many of us. This is entirely the point. A collective action problem exists, given that we're all like, we should give some degree of stuff to charity. We won't simply do it on a constant basis. At the point where people are morally held reprehensible, to the point where they actually fix the problem, that problem disappears. Presumably, and I'm just projecting to a point here, their case is going to be, well, in order for me to fix this problem, which is morally good, I have to do X action, which is morally bad. Don't believe it for a flaming second. There are enough of us to propagate actions which, yes, mitigate against the morally bad action, but at the same time prevent the morally reprehensible action from A, taking place, and B, continuing perpetually. There is nothing on their side of the house to show that anything we are potentially trying to do on proposition is any degree of permanency. We can prevent problems in Africa which will allow people to have a degree of social ability which goes permanently once we've stopped acting. We can leave, they can continue. Show us that our short-term actions are morally reprehensible. Show us that what we're doing we shouldn't do. Show me why a Louis Vuitton handbag is better than 8 kids dying of diphtheria, Ben. I challenge you. We're proud to stand in proposition.